So this applies to us individuals, to make sure that the inward self of each individual strives for saintliness, and all external means should be understood as a means to that end. We have to use external actions and practices in order to change our character. So here on page 179, we're in the middle of the page. I'll just carry on paraphrasing the next section. We explain the Mashiach will come also through different procedures that all should teach us the power of Teshuvah. The power of Teshuvah which can transform everything external to something internal. And to reach this high level, and especially if there are going to be individuals who will have the power to change the cloud, to change the community, one needs a high level. So if there's a contradiction within the human personality, then he might not have the merit upon which Zechut HaRabim depends, the merit of the public. Because he himself does not have a sufficiently high level. And that's called the Kitruk HaSatan. The Satan accuses and says, you're not at a sufficiently high level. Says that to the individual or to the group. You don't think that you've achieved your purpose, which is to become a source of saintly and spirituality for others, unless you put right your own self. Means sometimes the truth of that judgment will not allow a person to reach the high level, which is really his potential. So there's too much of a contradiction between his self-centeredness and materialism, which contradicts the spiritual purpose for which he's been put in this world. So how does one put it right? The only put right, to nullify it, he says, through the study of Musa and looking at what the world and life from the angle of truth. Now when he mentions here Limud Musa, if you take it in the wider sense, that's the most important thing in life, is to introduce ethical instruction at all levels. I'll just give a very practical example of the level of education for good behavior, even in institutions of Torah, would be improved a great deal if more emphasis would be put on Midot and Derech Eretz. Like for example, last week there was a big assembly because they made a national competition on a booklet which deals with Midot and Derech Eretz. It means the qualitative behavior for youngsters, for children. And they were given prizes, those who passed the tests and studied it all. Now, it's clear that there's great room for improvement in the so-called Haredi world as well. There's not enough emphasis on behavior. It is increasing a lot, especially in the Chadorim. But we all know it's got to be increased the level, not just of Cheder, Talmud Torah, but also Yeshiva Katana and Yeshiva Gedola. There's not enough emphasis upon all the laws concerning behavior, and it has to be increased. But nevertheless, it is on a far better level than in the schools, which are not closely attached to Torah study, where behavior is also not taught. And as a result, they've got to use methods of almost probational methods of disciplining youngsters by having security guards to make sure the youngsters who come in don't bring weapons and don't bring drugs into the school. And as I said, when I tried to prepare a program of principles concerning behavior to introduce into so-called non-religious schools without mentioning anything to do with religion, but all taken from the enormous wealth that's contained in our tradition for all different areas of human behavior, be it in the family, be it in business, be it in games which are played by different groups, in the power of speech, but make it suitable for people who are not interested in religion. It's interesting that we've had here, let's say, in our yeshiva, students who were not very much acquainted with anything Jewish, and they were introduced to a detailed study of the laws of speech, and they were amazed by it. They saw from the laws of speech, if they would really be kept, it would create a different society, a different method of discussing things at all groups, from families to major national decisions. In if one was to introduce an example, all the laws of Shmirat HaLashon, without reference to religion, but just from the point of view of having ethical speech in the Knesset, I'm sure that many aspects of what's going on in making decisions would be on a far higher level, and create a far better atmosphere of joint effort to improve all areas of life of the nation. So the challenge lies with us. We've got to try to spread far and wide the family and the social values which are so important for Shalom Bayit, for creating happiness in marriages and families, and creating happiness in all social groups. Whichever outlook that people will have from God and His Torah, but this is an area of life which is missing in so many sections of Israeli society, which we have to improve. So this is the challenge of Teshuvah for our age, to create a people that will be really recognized, as it says in the prophets, as a Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. And from this the whole Jewish people will benefit. But it needs a lot of hard work for each person to recognize this. Now, many of us, we still have contradictions in our lifestyle as far as this is concerned. And there's sometimes contradictions, the person thinks they don't exist in his character because the person has got blind spots as far as his own behavior is concerned. And therefore sometimes he's brought from outside circumstances to recognize what's wrong with me. And there's no question today, so-called Torah society or Haredi society, there are things that are happening, teachers wake up. Wake up to your own responsibility. So that is why sometimes from heaven there come tests that are very difficult for a person to overcome, and he trips up, makes mistakes. Frequently a person only is able to wake up to what is responsibility in Torah, in learning, or in application, if he makes mistakes. If the mistake should not be regarded as a cause for depression, on the contrary, regarded as a challenge to overcome the mistakes, which will bring him to a higher teshuvah.